Miss, Miss,
Yes.
about apart for the next week test, right? For the 12 August, I have vaccination. I have
Yes.
vaccination appointment for second dose.
What time?
8 o'clock.
Pardon?
8 o'clock. 8 morning. 8
Oh,
morning.
10 o'clock.
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
Ah, oh, 8 o'clock.
Yes. 8 a.m. I will. I will.
10
I will put leave for the for it.
We will take leave. Okay, so let me think first. 9 until 11. Mm, 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 mm. Oh. So beside Thursday, we only have Tuesday. But this Tuesday cannot because we need to cover chapter 6. Because you see, the chapter will be from 1 until 6. So this week we will finish chapter 4 and 5, and then after that, during the lecture next week, so we will continue with chapter 6. Okay, so if like that, hmm. So actually, guys, is it okay if we do the test not from any of your class? Okay, for example, outside your class time lah. Yeah. So because Daniel cannot, right? And then we cannot just do the test for him alone. How about the others? What if we do the test still next week, but it is not during our class? Yeah, night also can. Saturday, if possible, don't lah. But if you all can agree for weekdays night, then I'm okay too. Yeah. So how about the others? Can you all please raise your hand if you are okay during night? The test will be only about 1 hour 45 minutes, because the duration for the test is 1 hour and 30 minutes plus the 15 minutes for the submission time. Okay, guys, can you please raise your hand if you are okay with weekdays night? Which day? Which day? You all suggest lah, because I am okay with any day. Okay. Um, Thursday lah, Thursday. Thursday night. Maybe around 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. The time you choose lah. Oh yeah, Tuesday got all holiday. Yes, next Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday holiday. Okay, so are you free during the Monday so we can do replacement? for your test during Monday? Is it okay for you all? Actually, it is not encouraged for us to do the class during public holiday. But if you are okay, then I'm okay lah. Okay, so if you see my schedule here, so I am free during Monday. So if we do replacement class during Monday also can lah. 4 until 6 all days except Tuesday. What do you mean by that, Kelvin? Just time free. Free at oh 4 until 6 you all will be free. All days except Tuesday. Oh, okay. So how about the other group? Because you are from different group kan? So maybe Noel and Kelvin group is free from 4 until 6. What the other group? Ivan group? Russell? Jeremiah? Wong? If Monday, is it? Yeah. So now we are talking about the replacement for your lecture during this Tuesday. Sorry, for next Tuesday. Oh, Ivan. Okay, so if I can conclude that for we do replacement class for lecture on next week. So we do the replacement class on Monday 4 until 6. Is it okay for all of you? And then after that, we do your test during Thursday night. Thursday night. Yeah, I type pa. Maybe somebody cannot hear me. I don't know. Okay, so replacement class for Tuesday next week equal to Monday week 4 until 6 p.m. Yes, so Thursday test will be on Thursday night. The time you all can choose because I'm okay with any time on Thursday. Okay? Please give me raise hand, please, if all of you agree. If not, we cannot proceed, nih. Okay, but I need to check. Are all of you already raising hand? Okay, only 6 raising their hand. Don't put down their hand first, Only 6 for now. Okay, I stop raising first because I cannot see everybody's hand. Oh, how about Nyap Hao Wong, Jeremiah, Nathan, and Zisheng Wong? Jeremiah, yes. Nathan? Okay. Zisheng Wang and Yap Hao Wang. Yap Hao Wang lagi. Yap Hao Wang, where are you, Wang? Okay, so for now, for tonight, maybe we can start at maybe 7:30. It is the time for now. You all can propose later if you are not agree. Okay, 7:30. Okay, kah? So we can finish at 9. 9 9 or 9:15 already can finish already. Okay. Okay, so without any okay, you all can lower your hand lah. Okay, so we proceed with our chapter 4. Okay, now today is week 7 and we are in chapter 4. So we need to cover up until chapter 6 lah. Okay, so this week during the practical, we will do the lecture also for chapter 5. Okay, so the practical you all can do lah, because the practical for this week it is easy lah, I think, because you all just need to specify the or choose what is the non-functional requirement and functional requirement for your project. Okay, so we will learn about functional and non-functional requirement in this chapter now. Okay, so listen carefully lah. Okay, so we proceed. I share the screen first. Okay, so we proceed to the chapter requirement. I'm sure maybe the DSF already know about this. Okay, so but don't lightly lah, because this is degree, so the questions will be different. The format of the question or the form of the questions later during the test and exam will be a little bit different lah from the DSF questions, even though it is about the same lah, but this is a little bit details lah. Okay, so in this chapter we will cover what is the user requirement, how to construct it, what is system requirement and how to construct it, and then what is the functional requirement, how to construct it, non-functional requirement, and then how to construct it, and then what is the wrong with the natural language when you use natural language to write any requirement for your system. Okay, so we will learn about that. What is the natural language? So we will learn that later in this chapter. Okay, so after that, how we can construct system requirement specification, which is SRS. SRS is the document that is become the deliverable of the phase of requirement engineering. Okay, so at the end of a requirement engineering phase or requirement gathering phase, the software company should come out with a document. And then that document we name as SRS. So we proceed with the user requirement and system requirement. This Thursday, yes, Kelvin. This Thursday we will we will cover chapter 5. Okay, Kelvin. Oh no, next Thursday. Okay, so the user requirement. What is the user requirement? User requirement is high-level abstract requirement. Okay, so it is for user and people who procure the system. The high level abstract requirement, meaning to say that it is the requirement that is general. It will be from your user. Okay, you develop the software for them and then you get the requirement from them. Okay, so the user requirement is whatever the request to the software developer to develop. Okay, so because our client will not be from the technical, they don't know any technical aspect of software engineering. So usually their requirement will be general. Okay, so it is what we called as high level abstract requirement, meaning it only can they usually the high level abstract requirement, you all can imagine that um, if you have a plan, maybe if you want to develop a house, you know that, for example this is the example, you know that you want a double story house, and then in that house you know that there will be two floor, first floor, second floor, and then you know that your house is going to have three room, two bathroom, and then how many square feet. Okay, so that is the general things that you know about your house that you're going to develop. So it is like that. In the high level abstract requirement, it is like you look at your system at above and then you only see whatever that is obvious. Okay, so that is the high level abstract requirement. So it is like the user lah. The user only know. Okay. So Surayani, I want you to develop a online ticketing system that enable the user to create or to buy a ticket online. Okay, they only know about that, but the details of it will be created by the software engineer, which is actually in system requirement letter. Okay, so based on the user requirement from the user, okay, that is actually in abstract or in a general, only in a general term, we get the user requirement and we come out with a system requirement. Okay, so a user requirement usually will be stated or will be written in natural language. Okay, so natural language meaning the language that you use daily. Okay, so for example, in that company, your client company, they are using English as the medium for them to communicate to each other. So the natural language for that company is English lah. Okay, but if that, so it is based on the company lah. But usually in the government, they will be using Malay as the medium of communication. So their natural language usually supposed to be in Malay lah. Okay, so understand ah. Okay, so maybe also it can be stated by using diagram or tables. A simple diagram and tables that can be understandable by the user that is not in software engineering field. Okay, so system requirement, like I said just now, system requirement is the derive or the details of the user requirement. Okay, so we get whatever the user said to us, and then we make a detailed requirement from that user requirement. So it will be done by the software engineer lah, the one that is gathering the requirement. So it is precious and detailed description of user requirement. Okay, so it is the extended version of user requirement. Whatever that we get from user, we extend it, we make it details, we make it specific. So for example, and then it is usually written in structured form of natural language supported by system model and table. Okay, the structured form is actually, it is still natural language, but it is in structured form. In structured form meaning you also can see later lah the example of a structured form. So I will show later. Okay, after that This will be done during requirement analysis. Okay. Okay, so a system requirement also can become the starting point of for the design. Okay, so because it is created by the software engineer, that is details of the user requirement. So the system requirement can become the starting point for design. Be- and then it can be for example, functional specifications lah. Because from the user requirement, we derive whatever the user wants. Okay, so that whatever items that we derive, or whatever requirement that we derive from the user requirement, also known as functional specification. So it can be the starting point for any design, meaning the system requirement letter also can be become as a basic contract between the client and the software developer. Okay, so this is what I said, itulah contract between developer and customer. Okay, so the system requirement that will be written in the SRS document can be become the contract between the developer and customer. Why? Because that is the details of the requirement that the user wants, the initial requirement. And then every document after that, every activity after the system requirement will referring to the SRS. So that SRS become as a basic of the contract between the developer and customer, because anything can be referred to the software requirement specifications. Okay, so that is very important for you to really make sure that everything in the SRS is correct, so that it will not memakan diri later. I hope you all can understand memakan diri, because sometimes client can get back to you later, because if they maybe because there are some specification that is not clear in your SRS, and then they will use it as a weapon to not paying you, or to do something, because it is not clearly stated in your SRS. So that's why you have to make your SRS as clear as possible. So that's why later we will have a SRS, or requirement validation process later after we wrote the system requirement lah. Okay, so the reader for the user requirement, usually the client manager, the manager of your company, client, and then after that, the contractor manager. Okay, so the system end user, whoever will use that system in the future, will able to read the user requirement, and then the client engineer, all of the engineer from your client side, and then a system architect. Okay, so for the reader for the system requirement, usually will be the software developer, meaning you lah, if you become the software developer later. And then also system user, if they want the details of the user requirement, and then the client engineer, because sometimes client engineer also um, will need to refer to the system requirement if they need some clarification of in the system lah, if they are involved in the system. After that, also the system architect lah. Okay, so is my voice clear, guys? Because
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
my
Oh, yeah.
neighbor is don't know why they are not apa tu, they are always doing renovation. I don't know lah. Even I want to come to campus also cannot. now because it is not encouraged. The lecturer is not encouraged to come to campus lah. Some user. Oh, here it means that is the important user um, that will need to read the user requirement. Yeah, the software developer, as you can see here, the system requirement will be read by the software developer. So it means that the software developer is the the user that will be frequently read that requirement lah. Okay, so client manager also, because usually the client manager will be the one who responsible to manage the project from the client side, and then contractor manager, if we need some worker that will be involved in the software, then they also will always will be referred to the user requirement lah. Okay, so the end user, they are, I mean, they will read user requirement, but they only will read the user requirement usually when the system already in front of them. Okay, because usually they are only waiting for the system to finish, and then waiting for the developer to ask them if there are any requirement that is not clear. Okay, so we proceed. Okay, so this is the example of user requirement versus system requirement. Okay, so from this example, you all can clearly see the difference lah about user requirement and system requirement. So let's say the user said to you that they want a libsys system. So this libsys system will keep track of all data required by copyright licensing agency in the UK and elsewhere lah. Okay, so as a software developer, the software developer will read the user requirement, and then they will come out with a list of system requirement that they derive from the user requirement. Okay, so for example here, on making a request for a document from libsys, the requester shall be presented with a form that records details of the user and the request mode. Okay, so because the user, when they do the requirement, they don't know the details. They don't imagine the path on or how the system should react or behave. But as a software engineer, we have the knowledge. We can imagine what is needed in order for the libsys system can keep track of all of the data required. Okay, so here, as the software developer, the system requirement here that is created by a software developer, he said that yeah, on making a request for a document from libsys, the requester shall be presented with a form that records details of the user and the request made. And then the second system requirement, it is making clear about the request form. Okay, so in 1.1, it is saying about a requester should present a request form. But in the 1.2, it details what should about the request form. Okay, so here it says that the libsys request form should be stored on the system for 5 years from the data of the request. Okay, so another detailed requirement here is all libsys request form must be indexed by user, by the name of the material requested, and by the supplier of the request. Okay, so it it is stating here what the attribute, what is the attribute needed. Okay, so username and material requested is the details. Okay, so the user don't know about that, all of that detail. So you as a software engineer will know that. Okay, so in the system requirement, the software engineer can make assumption and it must be relevant, like assumption that is relevant. Okay, so based on your knowledge as software engineer, based on your experience, you come out with a system requirement just from one statement of from your user. Okay, for example Noel punya project apa tu Sutra Harbor staff attendance system, right? Okay, so maybe the user requirement from the Sutra Harbor client, I mean maybe the manager or whoever that requests that system, maybe they will say that the system must be able to capture the attendance of the staff of the Sutra Harbor anytime, anyway, or by using thumbprint lah. Okay, so maybe that is the statement that we get from the client. And then Noel, as the system requirement, maybe the first requirement that you will write is okay. So the staff of the Sutra Harbor that can use the system the must be the cleaner, must be the manager, okay, and must be the daily worker. Okay, so Noel as the software engineer, you know that you need to specify what kind of stuff. It is not, we cannot just use a stuff because a stuff is so general. So in the system requirement, Noel as the software engineer, you will make details of every user requirement from the Sutra Harbor. Okay, so understand kah? The user requirement and system requirement. Okay, so Noel understand? Okay, so anybody else? Kelvin, Farah, Daniel, Ivan, Nathan, okay kah?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, so we proceed lah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the main difference between user requirement and system requirement is, okay, so like I said previously, the system requirement must be more precise and detailed. There are no ambiguous words in your system requirement. Like I said just now lah, the example is, for example, from the user requirement from the Sutra Harbor, maybe those user only say that the system should be used by by staff of Sutra Harbor. Okay, so in the system requirement, the software engineer must precisely stating what type of or what position of the staff can use the system. Okay, so the main difference between user requirement and system requirement is system requirement is precise and detailed than the user requirement, as they are intended to communicate information about the system to different types of reader. Okay, so this is the exercise to prepare. You all need to prepare the user requirement and system requirement for the online purchase concert ticket function for an online system which allow user or online user to check seat availability, concert details and the purchase tickets. Okay, so there will the questions will need you to create 2 user requirement and 7 system requirement. Okay, so these are the example of past year questions. So the questions will only give you the name of the system, and then you will need to imagine how the system will works. Okay, not only imagine lah. First you can imagine, and then after that maybe you can search some from the internet, since this is open book, right? Okay, so maybe you can find some details about online purchase concept ticket function. Maybe you don't have any idea what is the attribute need to be encoded. Okay, so you can search about that system. Then after that, based on your understanding about user requirement and system requirement, you create the user requirement and system requirement lah. Okay, so this is the example of the answer for the online ticketing concept ticket, online purchase concept ticket. Okay, so for example of the user requirement here is the system must provide a facility which allow the online user to check on concert details, seat availability, and purchase ticket. Okay, so from your understanding here, which item here that is not clearly stated? Either concert details, seat availability, and purchase ticket. Facility. Okay, yes, facility. And then others? Which item in this user requirement that still can be in that still need to be detailed out? Yeah, concept details. Okay, so the example of concept details that need to be included, what? Actually, seat availability. Yeah, I think yes. Ticket availability, concept name. Yes. The concept detail is, for example, the concept name. Okay, so concept time, who is the singer or who is the artist. Okay, so because the user don't know, right? They only randomly set, not randomly lah. They only set generally concept details. So in the system requirement, we must make all of the things in the user requirement that is not detailed is detailed in the user requirement, in the system requirement. Okay, so we see the example of system requirement here. Okay, so the system allows the online user to view concept details, okay, first. And then after that, user can check the seat availability for the concept they are interested in. Okay, so seat availability, maybe the example of the seat availability, maybe either it is either it is in the front, it is in the back, right? Okay, so the user can select the seating position available and make a purchase for the tickets. Okay, so this is what I said just now, either at the back, middle, or in front, or okay. Okay, so the system will calculate the charges once the user confirm the transaction. Okay, so the system will also check on the payment details such credit card numbers and etc. Okay, so if the invalid payment details, the system will show message. If valid, the system will process transaction and update the seat do not available. Okay, so the system will generate online receipt. Okay, so whatever I said just now also, if you include, for example here, the concept details should be including the name of the artist, the time, the duration. Okay, so if you state that in the system requirement, also can be accepted. Okay, so maybe at point 9 here, maybe you will add that the concept details must be include the time, date, the artist name, Okay. So, okay, so we proceed to the how to construct functional requirement and non-functional requirement. So actually, from the system requirement just now, we know that the system requirement must be the details of user requirement. And then what is this functional requirement and what is the non-functional requirement? Okay, so functional requirement and non-functional requirement is actually system requirement. Okay, so system requirement, it is divided or categorized into two, which is functional requirement and non-functional requirement. So how do you construct functional requirement? How do you construct the non-functional requirement? So we will learn about that here in this topic now. Okay, so remember system requirement, it have two function. It has two category, which is functional and non-functional requirement. And this is your assignment. Okay, I think your assignment will if I remember it correctly, we check again. Your assignment for this week will need you to create functional and non-functional requirement. Wait, it is loading. Okay, so yes, here. Okay, so part two, system requirement. Okay, so system requirement will be divided into two, which is functional requirement and non-functional requirement. Okay, so in your task for your assignment this week, you will need to find or create functional requirement and non-functional requirement for each of the module in your system. Okay, so each of the module in your system. Okay. Okay, so this is your assignment for this week. Okay, so that's why I'm telling you, so that you all can focus lah on this topic. Okay, so this functional and non-functional requirement is under system requirement. Okay, so like I said just now lah, system requirement. Software system requirement, it has two, functional requirement and non-functional requirement. Okay, so the functional requirements may starting about the service of the system. The service of the system that you are going to develop for your client. Okay, so for example, what is the function inside that system lah? Okay, so and then how the system react to the input. Okay, so you need to state how the system need to react to the input, either using maybe you need you need to tell them how the system should behave lah to the client. So if your system is standalone or the online ordering food that need user to key in from using touch screen. Okay, so you also need to state every details about the system that you are going to develop lah, either using touch screen ka, either using mobile phone ka, either using web app ka. Okay, so after that, how system behave to the situation. Okay, so for example, if there are any invalid input to the system, how the system should behave, either it can give you some pop-up message, or maybe there will be an error message in red that is only stated at the top of the page. Okay, so that is the example of how the system should behave. Okay, so what system should not do? Okay, so instead of stating whatever services or behavior that the system should do, but functional requirement also can state what the system should not do. Okay. Okay, so this is the example of functional requirement that you can create for HR system. So this HR system have one subsystem which is employee self-service. Okay, so this is the example, the example of functional requirement. So it's stated here for the basic personal task for the employee self-service. The employee can perform the routine HR administration tasks such as changing name, address, home or work, telephone number, emergency contact, next of kin, and marriage, birth and adoptions details. So this is the attribute that of the employee that that can be changed or add or deleted. I mean, it is this all of the attribute or information of the employee that can be recorded into the system. Okay, so after that, another functional requirement is employee can upload common information to existing database. For example, the telephone directory and organization task. Okay, so this is the example actually for the module basic personal tasks. Okay, so remember if you have 3 modules in your system, each of your module should have its own functional requirement. Okay, so the example is like this lah. Okay, so there are a module in this HR system. There are subsystem. In that subsystem, there are a module which is basic personal task. So in the basic personal task, these are the functional requirement for that basic personal task. Okay, so another functional requirement is employee can view employees on employment history. For example, dia punya promotion stat, appraisal review, and training record. Okay, so and then after that, employee can view condition of employment, HR policy, procedure, information packs, and benefits. So this, as long as it is relevant, and then it doesn't contain some ambiguous word, then can be accepted. Okay, so as long as it is stating the service, stating how the system should behave or how the system should not behave. Okay, so as long as all of your requirement here fulfill the basic thing of here, okay, the basic thing of functional requirement, which is it should stating the service, all of this lah. Okay. So as long as your functional requirement is relevant and under any of the 4 items just now about the functional requirement, then it can be accepted. Okay, so we proceed to the non-functional requirement. So non-functional requirement, it is different with the functional requirement because it stating the constraint of the system. And then it also stating the product requirement. Product requirement here, actually, it is referring to the software requirement attribute. Okay, so if you all, previously we already have learned about a good software attribute, right? Okay, so like maintainability, reliability, security, reliability, usability, all of the ability or availability. Okay, so non-functional requirement is stating the product. Product here meaning your software, the software requirement. So for a software requirement is referring to a a good software attribute lah, whatever that we have learned previously. And then organizational requirement. Okay, so because the organizational requirement is something that outside the product or outside the software. So usually organizational requirement is example of it is the policy of your client company. Okay, so whatever policy from your client company should be included in the non-functional requirement. Okay, so for example, if you cannot imagine, for example, the client company working hour only from 8 until 5 p.m. Okay, so your system, for example, if you have one module in your system, which is a reporting module, and then there are one report in your reporting module that will need to generate monthly report. Okay, so in order to write non-functional requirement for your monthly report, so maybe you will state that the report should be created or should be available at the end of the month. Sorry, the report should be created or available at the end of working day every end month. Okay, for example, if that month the working day only up until 29, okay, for example 29 July lah, August lah for this month lah. Okay, so the monthly report must be available on 29 lah. And then another non-functional requirement that you write is because of the organizational requirement, your client only work up until 5 p.m. every day. So in the next functional requirement that you write, maybe you will say that the the monthly report must be available at the end of the working day every month, and then it must be available only after 5 p.m. of the end of the month lah. Okay, working day of that month. Okay, so for example, if there are 29 and it is the end of the working day for that month, and then the report must be only available after 5 p.m. Because why? It is a monthly report, right? So all of the working activity during that month must be at the end of the time, because so that the report or the data is within that month. Okay, so I hope you all can understand lah. Okay, so what I mean is whatever organizational requirement, for example, the requirement from your client company, you must also take into consideration, and your non-functional requirement should state about some requirement that related to that organizational requirement. Let me drink first. Yeah, so after that, the external requirement. Yeah, so the external requirement is, for example, if the software that you are going to develop will need to integrate to any other software or third-party software from your client company. Maybe they are currently using some existing software, and then maybe when your system or when you create a non-functional requirement for one of the module in your system, and then the module will need to integrate with the existing software from your client company. So maybe you will state that we said that in order for this module to integrate with the existing system of client company, the client company must prepare an API for it to be integrated to our system. Or in order to get the information from the existing system that client been using, so our system taking the API, or our system must have the API from the existing software. Okay, so that is the example of external requirement. Okay, in short, these are the summary of whatever um, that is I said just now. So like I said, the product requirement is usually referring to the software quality attribute. Okay, so for example here, the usability, the performance, either the space, the reliability, portability, maintainability. Okay, so all the ability that we have learned previously is under product requirement. After that, process or organizational requirement. Okay, so for example here, the delivery, the implementation, standard. Okay, so maybe when we are creating some document, or when we are creating our software, we may need to follow some standard that is must follow the standard from your client company. And then after that, the external requirement, external requirement, like I said just now, is the interoperability, the ethical, legislative, and then the privacy of all of the data that you collected in your system, how it should be protected. Okay, so safety. Okay, so these are the example. Okay, so for the product requirement, the example here, okay, for example, the user interface for Lipsys shall be implemented as simple HTML without frames or applets Java. Okay, so this is product requirement and it is relating to your software. Okay, so the client will never know what language we will be using. Okay, so you as the software engineer, you should know what language should be used to create the user interface. So thus, you know what you will need to state here. Okay, so for example here, the user interface must use the HTML. Okay, so example of organizational here is, like I said just now, it is conforms to any policy from the organization. So maybe your client have some policy. And so the example here, the system development process and deliverable document shall conforms to the process and deliverables defined in document XYZ. Okay, so this is just example. So we just imagine that this document is the policy from your client. Okay, so the standard that is created by your client. So whatever that you have do in your development and in all your deliverable documents, for example, your SRS, SRT, okay, so it should follow the standard from this document. And then external requirement. Okay, so the example here is the system shall not disclose any personal information about system user apart from their name and library reference number to library staff who use the system. Okay, so this is related to the safety, safety and privacy of the data in your system. Okay, so this is the example lah. Okay, so this is the exercise. Also, it is from the past year questions. Questions 1. Prepare the user requirement and system requirement for the online purchase ticket function for an online system, which allows user to check seat availability, concert details, and purchase ticket. And then give questions 2. Give 2 functional and 2 non-functional requirement for the above online system. Okay, so you all can expect this example of questions will be asked during the exam letter. Okay, so you all can use the example that we have seen previously. Okay, so this is I think the same questions like the previous one. Okay, so we proceed with the natural language, but before that we take 5 first lah, because it is only 1 hour. Sorry, it is already 1 hour lecture. Okay, so we meet again at 3:30 at okay. Okay, so it's 3:38 already. Don't be surprised I'm using mask now because I think I'm coughing just now because I have inhaled something that make me batuk lah. Okay, so I'm using mask because I don't want to coughing. Okay, so Noel asks, is the final mark given at the 4th week or during the submission? Oh, you will need to give some time to the lecturer lah. Okay, Noel, you need to give some time to the lecturer to mark the assignment first. But I think let me check the form C first. I think the week 14 is the week for the feedback already. Then the week 14 you all will see your feedback lah after that. Okay, the document. Okay, wait. Okay, so actually it is in your assignment already. It is stated here. Wait, it's loading. Okay, so here the submission will be on week 13, and then the assignment feedback will be on week 14. So by the fifth week 14, then you can see the mark already lah, and then you can make good if any, or you can give feedback mana tahu there's some mark calculation error. Okay, so you all can feedback the lecturer after during the week 14 lah. Okay, so before we proceed with the problem of natural language, I want to ask again. A software requirement, software requirement, there are two. Remember, software requirement. Software requirement is the name of our chapter. Software requirement, we have two, which is one is who remember? No, not functional requirement. Yes, user requirement. Okay, the second is system requirement. Lim, yes, correct. So under system requirement, there will be two requirement category, which is first system requirement divided into two category, which is first functional requirement. Yes, second. Okay, don't answer first. I want to ask a student. I want to ask Ivan. What is the second system requirement? What is the second category of system requirement? Ivan. Yes, Ivan, please acknowledge. If you are here, please acknowledge. If no, then I can assume that you are not here. Yes. Because if I am asking, and then you all silent, then I don't know what happened. Oh, okay. So, Ivan, the second category of system requirement. The first is functional requirement. The second is, okay, non-functional requirement. Please give me one category of non-functional requirement. If you all remember just now, there are actually three non-functional requirement. So please give me one. There are three category and non-functional requirement. Please give me one, Ivan. Okay, yes, Farrell, yes, correct. Product requirement. I need to ask Ivan first. Yang the second Ivan. Yes, Ivan. And then yang the third, I want to ask. Yes, still you. Organizational. Yes. Okay. There are another one. The third category under non-functional requirement. I will ask Russell lah. The third category under non-functional requirement. First is product, second is organization, and then the third will be what, Russell? Okay, yes, external. Okay, so good. Okay, so now we proceed to the what's wrong with natural language. Okay, so before we proceed, I want to ask one other person. Shak, Kon Ken Shak, what is natural language? Kon Ken Shak, what is actually a natural language? Yeah. Yes, Shak. What is natural language? I think I have explained that in our lecture earlier. Natural language that has evolved naturally in human. Okay lah. I can accept that lah. But actually, natural language is the language that is used to communicate among that community or organization or that group of people. Okay, so for example, if the natural language, if the company main medium of communication is English, then their natural language is English lah. If, for example, government, they are using Malay as the medium of communication, then natural language is Malay lah. Okay, so natural language is language that is used to communicate mainly, or the main language that is used to communicate in that group of people. Okay, so like us also Sabahan, we usually use three language, which is English, Mandarin or Chinese, and then Sabahan Malay. Oh yes, language that has evolved naturally in human, or language that is used to communicate between humans. Okay, so what is wrong with this natural language? Okay, so why we cannot rely 100% on natural language when you write your system requirement? Okay, so because previously, if you all remember, the user requirement is usually will be write using natural language, but for the system requirement, it is usually used. System requirement usually will be written in structured natural language, not really natural language. So what is the structured natural language? You all will see later. So this is the natural language problem. Okay, because it is lack of clarity. Okay, so for example, apple. When I said apple, some people said the apple lah, the food apple. Some people think that apple from Microsoft, Mac or iPhone. Okay, so this it is lack of clarity. So there are some words that actually can be that can be interpreted differently, different way of interpret that word. Okay, so that's why natural. That is one of the example, one of the problem of natural language, which is lack of clarity. So there are a lot of ambiguity. So ambiguity is the things that I said just now. One word can be interpreted with different meaning. For example, the apple just now lah. If I just said apple, yes, maybe Kelvin will think that, oh, apple, the green apple lah. Okay, so maybe if I said that, if you okay, example lah, if you get an A plus in this course during the test letter, I will give you an apple. Okay, I will give you an apple. Okay, so maybe Kelvin, oh, maybe Miss will give me the apple from the Mac iPhone ka, okay? Okay, so maybe Jeremiah will think that, oh, maybe green apple saja lah. Okay. So it is the ambiguity. One word can be interpreted differently. Okay, so different people will interpret the word differently. Okay, so it is not precise. Yes, like I said just now, the staff, Sutra Harvest staff, everyone also a staff. Whoever working in the Sutra Harvest also a staff, but it is a precise or not. Because, okay, so if you want to say staff, you need to make it really clear again. Okay, so you need to make it a detail. Yes, after that, wordy. It is too wordy. So imagine that we don't have table, we don't have any notation, we don't have use case, we don't have any graphical diagram. Okay, so imagine that you are explaining a diagram, you are explaining the architecture of your system using word or using just written language, the natural language. Okay, so imagine that, if you are explaining about double-story house, okay, the house must have 2 floors. The floor must be one in the top and then one in the bottom. Okay, so at the top it must have 3 3 rooms. At the bottom, it only should have a toilet and kitchen. Okay, so it is very wordy lah. And then it is difficult to read usually. Usually people will not really like to read. Okay, so for me, I also more understand when I see any diagram. Yes, after that, it is also can produce requirement confusions lah, because like I said just now, because of the ambiguity, lack of precisation. Okay, so it can lead to the confusions, requirement confusions. Okay, so because maybe we don't know either it is functional or non-functional requirement, what is the system goals, because everything is stated, and then it is very wordy, so we don't know which is one. I mean, we don't know which one we need to focus. Okay, so when you design, like I said just now, when you design, but you only write all of your design using the words, so yeah, so it will be not practical lah. Okay, so the amalgamation, uh, I forgot the example of amalgamation already. Okay, so the amalgamation is actually the action, process, or result of combining or uniting. Okay, so when you okay, so this is actually meaning like the user requirement just now. Okay, so if you read the user requirement, just whatever example that we have read previously, okay, so one sentence, it containing a lot of function already in that system, in that user requirement. Okay, so it means that one sentence have many function inside it. It didn't atomic. I hope you all can understand. It I mean, the functions is mixing, or the the sentence is mixing everything that the user wants. It only write it in one sentence. Okay, so that is amalgamation, meaning so many functions or requirement in only one statement. Okay, so that is the example of amalgamation. Okay, so this is the example of problem of the natural language. Okay, so like I said just now, the user requirement will surely have natural language problem. Okay, so for example here, LibSys shall provide a financial accounting system that maintains record of all payment made by the user of the system. System manager may configure this system so that regulars the user may receive discounted rates. Okay, so what I can see here that it is already have the problem of amalgamation. Okay, so as you can see here, it stated many function of the system in only one user requirement. So actually this user requirement, we can divide it into two. Okay, so maybe the system manager may configure this system so that regular user may receive discounted rates. Okay, so this can be another user requirement. Okay, so this is the example of amalgamation. Okay, so and then this is also okay, so payment record maintenance. Okay, so the example of ambiguity here is maintenance. Okay, so we don't know the words of maintain here. Actually, maintain here referring to the add, edit, or delete. Okay, so these words maintains has ambiguity in it. Okay. And then discount rate configuration. We don't know what is actually the exact money of the discount rate. Okay. Okay, so reason why natural language is not good for writing your system requirement, because understanding of same word for same concept. Okay, so because not everyone will understand. Not everyone will understand the same word for the same concept. Okay, so the example just now is the apple lah. Okay, so the tools that what is the tools that we can use to solve these natural language problems? Okay, so we can use whatever that we have lah. Example is the notation. Okay, notation. Okay, so in order to develop a system requirement, and then in order to avoid the problem from the natural language problems, okay, so we will use notation. Okay, so natural language is over flexible because everyone can write anything they want, and then it is based only their own opinion. Okay, so something can be said in many different ways. Okay, so another reason why natural language is not a good tools for system requirement is no clear partitioning. Okay, so diagram are better to skip or represent requirement. Yes, so that's why we need a notation like a diagram. Okay, so how do we construct the SRS? This is the document. The document of the requirement engineering phase or requirement gathering phase. Okay, so okay, so when you construct SRS, you will need this notation, this four notation. Okay, so we are not only use the natural language to describe our SRS, but also this four notation. Okay, so the structured natural language is, for example, the decision table. Okay, so another example is template or table for system input, for process output like data dictionary. Okay, so the design description language is the example if programming language. Okay, so the example of programming language, whatever you have learned, maybe for example, um, PSA, any of you have learned about this programming language? No, if not, then you can assume, yeah, you can assume maybe C++. Okay, so for example of the design description language is maybe you can use the pseudocode. You know about pseudocode, right? Okay, so pseudocode also example of design description language. Yeah. So maybe it's still using natural language. Okay, so design description language is still have a natural language, but it may contain some words that we are usually use in our programming language. For example, if, else, larger than, more, all of the logical or arithmetic notation. Okay, so that is under the design description language. After that, graphical notation, that DFD, data flow diagram. Okay, sequence diagram. Okay, so mathematical, we also can use mathematical specification. So we can use any mathematical formula or specification to use in our SRS. For example, set lah. Okay, so if you all remember that there are set A, set B, and then when they are combined, there are area that is become gray. Okay, so that one also can become one of the tools or one of the notation that can be used in SRS. The structured language is actually like what we have seen in our system requirement example just now. Okay, so here lah. Okay, so this is functional requirement. It is under system requirement, and there are, but this is the example. This example is only have one example. But if you remember just now in our previous slide, there are 1.2, 1.3, 1.5. So that is can be said as a structured natural language. Okay, so that is example of structured natural language. Because you write the statement based on structure. Usually 1.2 will detail out the 1.1. Okay, so that is the structure. Natural language. Okay, so we proceed with, okay, so this is the notation. I am not sure if you, but I think the SF student last time already know about decision table. Okay. The data dictionary kan, data dictionary, if you all can imagine lah, it is only just a table like there are column, there are row, and then there will be, you will list out, for example, all of the attribute in a database table. And then you will list out, for example, in your database table, and then your table name is student lah. Okay, so table name is student, and then attribute in the student will be the name, the student ID, the age. Okay, so each of the attribute you will write in the one column, and then in the second column it will state what type that attribute. For example, student name is string, and then the length is maybe up until 200. Okay, so age maybe in integer, and then integer, the length of the integer is maybe 2. Okay, up until 3 lah, maybe, no, 2 lah, 2. Okay, 2 for age. And then either it is primary key or foreign key. Okay, so that is data dictionary. Okay, so DFD is data flow diagram, sequence diagram. So this is actually we have already learned in software requirement design. So the SF student should already know about this, but for Noel, Farah, and Kelvin, I am not sure. Noel, Farah, and Kelvin, have you heard previously about the FD and sequence diagram? Oh, okay lah. I thought haven't, so that I am worried already. How I can explain to you guys about this? Okay, now good lah. Okay, so no need for me to worry lah about this. You all already know. Okay, so we proceed. Software requirement specification. The deliverable of the phase of requirement gathering or requirement engineering. Okay, so what should be in the SRS? Okay, first official statement. This is just this is the definition of SRS lah. So it is actually a official statement of what the system you are going to develop should do. Okay, the official statement about that, and then all the user requirement that is given by your client, and then the system requirement that is created by the software engineer, and then it also should specify what without how. Okay, so it only will state about whatever software requirement that you have already discovered previously, and that it didn't tell about how. How will be written in software requirement design. Okay, so if you are in the stage of design already, then it should tell about the how. But in the SRS, it only tell about what. It should be complete and consistent. So in order to make your SRS to be complete and consistent, there will be a phase of requirement validation after you have created the SRS. The requirement validation will be done by somebody that are not involved in the writing the SRS. But the somebody should know, the inspector of the document should know what should be in the SRS. Okay, so and then the SRS should have no conflict, meaning if if you are using the same words consistently from the start of the document up until the end of the document, so you are consistent using the same term so that people will not confuse you what you are talking about. Okay, so after that, the SRS user will be your system, your customer, the project manager, either project manager from client side or from your side, software developer side, and then the system engineer, system test engineer, because the system test engineer will need to check something in the when they are creating software testing document later, they will need to base on the SRS. Okay, so after that, system maintenance engineer, because the same reason lah. When the software maintainer will do the document or will do the maintenance later, they will need to refer to the SRS. So remember, SRS is the basic of contract. So everybody or every activity after the software requirement gathering will be referring to the document, to your SRS. They will not go to your client again and ask them again. No, they only will refer to the SRS. Okay, so these are the content that should be in the SRS. First, introduction. So introduction should have the purpose, scope, and overview, and then the business context of the software you are going to develop. Glossary is like the terminology list. Okay, so whatever terms that you use in the document, you need to put it in the glossary, because the SRS will be also read by the non-technical user, so they need to understand some of the terminology, especially the terminology that is rarely used by a common people. They are usually used by only a software engineer or someone that in our field lah. For example, if you are using DFD, you said that okay, the overall of this system can be seen using the test case. The test case can be referred at the page, blah 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 blah, and then you need to make sure that what the test case is defined in the glossary. Okay, so definition of terms. Okay, so user requirement definition, whatever the requirement have told you or whatever the user have told you previously, okay, in general. Okay, and then system architecture. So this is the architecture of the system lah. So you need to write it also in the SRS. And then we will learn about this next week in chapter 6. After that, SRS, okay, so software, whatever requirement that you derive from the user requirement, all of the non-functional and functional requirement is you write here lah in this phase. Okay, so the non-functional, functional, interface, or performance, okay, system models, also in chapter 6, system evolution. Okay, so the system evolution will tell about the version of the software. Yes, so we will learn about that in the chapter 11 let appendices lah, whatever maybe external resources that external source that you use, maybe IEEE document. Okay, so you can put it in the appendices. Okay, so reference lah, supporting document, maybe because a software document is usually will refer to the IEEE so IEEE lah usually. So IEEE have provided a template for SRS actually. Okay, IEEE is this an organization that is organize a lot of event, conference about software or computer. So they are also the organizations like can set the rule. Okay, so SRS, they are a template from IEEE actually can be used. So later when you are in the industry letter, when you don't know what to input it in your SRS, you can search for the IEEE template of SRS. Okay, so they will give you can download it. Last time I can download it freely. I am not sure either because we are in TAR-UC organization, or even though you are public user also can use, but I think if you want to download it, then you can download now lah. While you are being the TAR-UC student, because usually if we are in educational, most of the sources will be free for us. Okay, so this is the index. Okay, so the index here, this is the example of the index lah. Okay, so here it will tells about for example, if you use this term, you can see this term is from what page. Okay, so for example, if you use a term abstract, you can search abstract in page 6, 17, 27. If you use article manager, so you can search from this page. Okay, so the structure of the SRS, separate chapter or appendices for hardware and database requirement. Okay, so if you writing about the hardware that will be need, and then the database, you should write it in the separate chapter or appendices. So this is the structure of SRS. Okay, so finish already. Okay. Oh yes, finish already. Yeah. Okay, so if you don't want to refer to the SRS template, you also can refer to this lecture lah of whatever items that need to be included in the SRS. So this is may not complete, but this is enough. Okay, so this is the most important thing that should be included in your SRS. Okay, so um, okay, so this is um, not included lah yang tadi. Okay, so no worry. Okay, so any other? Do you have any questions?
Um,
So we still have about 11 minutes. I think we shouldn't waste the time. About 10 minutes lagi oh. Do you have any questions about the test? Tips. Test all theory. You'll find like the system requirement just now lah. They will give you the name of uh, the system, and then you will need to create non-functional and functional requirement for it. Okay, so it is actually a little bit practical, but also a theory lah. Tips. Read all 1 until 6. So I think the tips, no need to tips lah. I think because it is open book, right? Oh, that one I am not so sure because the test it is not me. I mean, it is not done by me. Okay, so it is because we have the CC. We have a CC for this course. So yeah, I'm not sure actually because the test is still in the moderation. Somebody need to moderate the test before it is released to the student. You think you need what? Wong. Tips. The tips. I think I've been telling all of you this. Okay, so first, when even though the questions didn't ask for your using your own words, still you all need to use your own words. Don't copy bulat-bulat from the slide. Okay, because usually lecturer can detect the words from the slide. Okay, so don't use words from slide. Explain using your own opinion. Don't follow, or you should be confident about your own opinion. Don't macam you think that only the words from the slide is correct. Actually, because you are now in your bachelor degree already, right? So you also, I think, all of your, because so far I have teaching all of you. I believe in your own opinion. Usually, when you give opinion, it is relevant. So be confident with your answer, or when you are using your own words, because I can say that up until now, I think whenever you give your opinion or whenever you answer some of the questions, I can say that your answer is relevant lah. Relevant. Okay, so what else? Use your own words. Okay, so if you think that in any chapter there are things that is highlighted by the lecturer, just me. Okay, so I guess in the project management chapter, you all will need to create Gantt chart. Yeah, usually we will have a answer sheet lah. Answer sheet. So that answer sheet will be put in the test letter. So you need to answer using the answer sheet. Yeah. Gantt chart, but don't need to create using the project management software lah. You can create the Gantt chart by just using the table like in our slide. Okay, so if you have the problem to open Microsoft project, then you can use the table. Yeah, like Slim. Yeah. Okay, so I assume lah because I'm not the creator. So usually the famous questions you see in the project management will be Gantt chart. In the software requirement is the non-functional and functional requirement or system requirement. Okay, so or like previously we have seen in the chapter 4 ni kan, it says that a past year question. So past year question, it usually asks about the user requirement and system requirement. And then later during the question in the chapter 5, this is my assumption lah, because I know which topic is actually should be highlighted or famous, or which topic that is important to a student. So in chapter 5, if I'm not mistaken, something like, because we will learn this in this week during the tutorial and practical time. So in this letter, maybe you can read earlier about that's why I don't like this room during petang-petang, because the sun is very hot. Okay, here, explain and evaluate viewpoint oriented analysis. So I think this viewpoint oriented analysis, even the DSF student previously haven't learned about this. Okay, so next Thursday we will learn about this. So in chapter 5, I think the highlight for this chapter 5 is viewpoint oriented analysis lah. You all can see kan, it is in red already. Okay, so this is important lah. Okay, architectural design, system organization, module decomposition. Yeah. So this one, okay, so this one I am not so sure, but if you see here, the one in red, so it is important now. The objective here kan, they are red here, so it is important lah. The highlight of the chapter. The highlight of the chapter. So I already give the tips lah, but I'm not sure if that tips is really will be questions in the test letter. But if this is just based on my instinct lah. Okay, based on the past year questions that we have seen previously. Okay, so based on, I'm the lecturer, overall I know which is the highlight of each of the chapter. Like I said just now, in the software project management, if you know about the how to create the Gantt chart using the project software project management, then okay, you can, when you work later, okay already. Because I'm sure project Gantt chart and then the project management too, a software project too, usually will be used not only in the software field but also in any other field, as long as they are using they have a project, and then there will be some duration to complete the project. There will be a milestone. Okay, surely they will use Microsoft Project and Gantt chart. Okay, so any other questions?
No.
No. Okay, so for the tutorial, since we will use our tutorial this week to to for the chapter 5, so I will just post the tutorial. You all can answer that tutorial and then treat it as your revision time. Okay, and then later when we have time after the test, we can, not after the test lah, after the weekend. Okay, so we will go through that tutorial. Okay, so any other questions?
Mm.
No. So yeah, so if you all don't have questions, then we can dismiss our class now. Okay, bye everyone.
Okay, thank you, Miss.
Okay, thank you, Miss.
Okay.